Mr. D. Eugenio and I saw a film of a potential Oswald watching the motorcade go by, which means that he was downstairs at the time of the shooting, and that would be very interesting to see. We couldn't say for sure that that was Oswald, but it's a man who looks like him. So I think it would be a very good idea for the task force to subpoena NBC, which has the original film.
Yes, they supposedly have the original. Yeah.
They have the original film. They've refused it twice to be shown.
Yes.
And if this task force could easily get that, and American public should have a right to judge for itself who was standing there.
According to Pew Research, trust in the federal government has plummeted from 74% in 1958 to 22% in 2025. That's a trajectory that is utterly unsustainable and in the long term incompatible with democratic self-governance. Unfortunately, a lot of that decline in trust is justified. The JFK assassination the JFK assassination happened over 60 years ago, and we still don't have all of the facts about what happened that day. Mr. Morley, thank you for being here, and thank you for all of your work that you've done on this. Do you believe that the CIA is in compliance with President Trump's executive order to declassify and release the JFK files?
No. There are important records that have not been provided, like the personnel file of George Ioannidis. I should also note that as we go through these records, there are still redactions in some of these records. Not a huge amount, but we have not had full compliance either in producing all the records or in redacting or completely releasing all the records that were redacted.
And for the record, how many of the JFK files has the CIA released since the executive order was issued?
The figure of 80,000 pages is accurate as far as we can tell, and that's information from several thousand documents.
Are those from the CIA specifically?
Most of the records that were released last month, about 80% of them were from the CIA.
Okay. And how many documents do you believe the CIA still has that either haven't been released or are overly redacted?
Since we haven't seen them, it's hard to put a number on it, but I would put the number in the hundreds. Okay. Hundreds of documents.
Hundreds, okay. And you are one of the foremost researchers on this topic. In your opinion, since the Warren Commission, has the federal government been forthcoming with information related to the JFK assassination?
No. All of this information could have been released a long time ago. By law, all of it should have been released 8 years ago. So the attitude of obstruction and obfuscation from the CIA started on November 22nd, 1963, when CIA officers started lying about what the CIA knew. And that attitude, unfortunately, has continued to the present day.
And we've had several congressional investigations related to these files. During those inquiries, in your estimation, do you believe that any FBI, CIA, or other government officials have lied under oath or deliberately misled investigators?
In my remarks, I identified 3 of them who definitely lied. It's beyond reasonable doubt. Counterintelligence Chief Angleton, Director Helms, and Branch Chief George Ioannidis.
Mm-hmm. And given the amount of uncertainty that we have related to these files, do you believe that there's information that we'll never know about because, for instance, maybe the information has already been permanently deleted or the figures involved have died?
I'm actually optimistic that we can get to the bottom of this matter. We have a new attitude on the part of the government. We have President Trump's executive order, which strengthens the existing mandates of the JFK Records Act. So I think if the task force and the public and the Congress apply pressure and demand this material, we can get it and we can reach a decisive clarification about the causes of President Kennedy's assassination.
Thank you, and I'd like to yield the balance of my time to the chairwoman.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Gill. Mr. Stone, I'd like to ask you specifically, in talking with you earlier, you mentioned 3 women that were witnesses that had their testimonies omitted by the Warren Commission in regards to seeing Oswald in the book depository. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yes, it's a very interesting piece of information that we put into our documentary, JFK Revisited. It came out. It came out of the AR. It came out of the ARRB, or it came out. From,
I'm not sure if it
anyway,
Came out in recent years.
it came out in recent years around that time. Barry Ernst wrote about it and was interviewed in our film, in which he says that in addition to, there were 3 women on the 4th floor who, during the time of the assassination, they witnessed it from above, and immediately they were headed down to see what was going on at a closer angle. 2 of the women went downstairs quickly. The 3rd woman, Dorothy Garner, who was a supervisor, an older woman, watched them go down the stairs. They were down, all this happened within 30 seconds. Oswald was on the, if he was on the 6th floor, which I sincerely doubt, had to be a track star to store the weapon, to run across the floor and go down those same stairs, and appear as he did to Marion Baker in the 2nd floor lunchroom. All of this was highly unlikely, and I think that should be addressed. 2 of the women are still alive.
No, Victoria Adams passed away. I think Sandy Stiles is still alive. The Garner, it's called the Stroud document, and it has Garner's testimony in it. All right. This was discovered by writer Barry Ernst in 1999 as a result of the ARB. All right. And it turned out that the Texas Attorney General, Stroud, had talked to Garner, the supervisor, and sent this information to the Warren Commission in the summer of 1964. But you won't find it in any of the Warren Commission volumes, even though it's a kind of important piece of evidence, because Garner said that, she never saw Oswald on the stairs, and the 2 girls went down before the policeman and the supervisor Roy Truly came up. So it's very hard to believe that Oswald was tearing down those stairs, and this woman never saw him.
Mr. Oswald, Mr. Stone, sorry, lots of Oswald today. Mr. Stone, one of my last questions for you before we wrap up this hearing. Would you recommend that the task force send a letter requesting NBC make a clear copy of the film?
Certainly, that'd be very interesting. Mr. D. Eugenio and I saw a film of a potential Oswald watching the motorcade go by, which means that he was downstairs at the time of the shooting, and that would be very interesting to see. We couldn't say for sure that was Oswald, but it's a man who looks like him. So I think it would be a very good idea for the task force to subpoena NBC, which has the original film.
Yes, they supposedly have the original. Yeah.
They have the original film. They've refused it twice to be shown.
Yes.
And if this task force could easily get that, and the American public should have a right to judge for itself who was standing there.
First of all, I would like to thank our witnesses for being here today. There are those in our country who may ask why this task force seeks to pursue the truth underlying the facts surrounding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. And the answer to that is the truth. Even the truth delayed and justice, even justice delayed, is always worth attaining. And the men and women who have sought answers regarding the assassination of the American President John F. Kennedy for all the world to see have been obstructed and hampered by our own government for over 60 years. This hearing is not meant to provide a definitive explanation of the Kennedy assassination. This hearing demonstrates, however, that the CIA and other components of the federal government have not been honest with the American people that they are meant to serve up until recent efforts. And the American people must hold these agencies accountable, and they can. I've invited Mr. Stone, a filmmaker, to this hearing because he did just that, motivating Congress in the 1990s to pass a law that began the declassification process. And I'd like to applaud our president for continuing this process as he promised to do so. Researchers like Mr. Morley and Mr. DiEugenio have provided new information that helped bring light to some of the darkest days in American history. And I would like to thank the witnesses again and applaud their work. The search for truth continues, and the task force will pursue this at any price. I'd also like to note that we are planning on sending a letter to NBC requesting what you've recommended, Mr. Stone. Before I wrap it up, I would just like to say, do you guys have any statements in closing for the American people?
I would just like to thank you, Chairwoman Luna, for your aggressive, action-oriented approach to this issue. While we diverge politically, it's been a pleasure to work with you, and your leadership is important on this. Like I said before, I think we are making progress.
Thank you. Mr. Stone or Mr. DiEugenio?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I really admire what you're doing, and I wish you the best of success.
Mr. DiEugenio?
I think one of the things that the committee should do is talk to some of the people who were on the ARB, so you can understand just how difficult it was for them and why they couldn't complete their job. All right, I certainly hope that this committee does complete that job, and finally, 62 years later, we'll know everything the government did know about the. One thing that the gentleman down here asked about, see, very few people know there were 3 attempts on JFK's life in November, okay? There was one in Chicago, there was one in Tampa, and then there was the successful one, in Dallas. The Chicago attempt so much resembles what happened in Dallas that if the Secret Service would have given all those records over, okay, then the Dallas one might have been prevented. At the one in Tampa, that one, there was just the opposite of Dallas. You had wall-to-wall Secret Service, FBI, et cetera. And Kennedy was so happy that he got away, that he stayed after at the Floridian Hotel and insisted on shaking hands with every single officer that was involved in that attempt, all right? So these are some of the records that are still out there.